It's time for ROTD Weekend. I am heading to New Orleans tomorrow. I am there for a conference, a food blogging conference. Always so much fun. I meet up with other people who do exactly this kind of job. We all love food, love cooking. We love taking pictures of food, videos, social media. Some other people have podcasts too. So it's just a bunch of people who are in the same industry, and it's fun to like nerd out together. So I'm really excited about that. But also I am going a day early because one of my best friends lives in New Orleans. Ryan, he is so cool. Actually, if you've been listening to this for a long time, like back before it was called Recipe of the Day, when it was TMI, the Time Management Insider podcast, very long time ago, I had Ryan on as a guest, so you might remember that. But Ryan and his wonderful girlfriend, Poppy, live in New Orleans, which is such a treat for me because, of course, I'm there for a conference, but I also get to see them. But also, they know all the ins and outs of that great city and are going to be showing me around, taking me out to restaurants and all of that kind of thing. So super excited. I'm a little bit like feeling the chaos though, because literally the day after I get back, the morning after I get back, we are leaving, me, Marty, and the kids for our spring break trip to Ecuador. And yeah, super excited about both trips, but not entirely sure what I was thinking when I booked them back to back. I guess there wasn't really a choice. The conference is what it is, and Marty's spring break from teaching and the kids from school is when it is also. So that's happening. And I just feel like between now and then, I have a really long to-do list, and I'm just like whack-a-mole knocking things out. And then I'm just going to jump on a plane and go hang out with my friends and eat good food and learn stuff and nerd out. So yeah, I'll get things done. I am planning to have all of these daily podcast episodes for you, even though I'm away. I'm recording them ahead of time. There will not be any gaps, but I know you would forgive me if there were, but I'm trying hard to make sure that doesn't happen. So I will be here every day for you, same place as usual, even if I myself am in a different place. Now, I am sharing a interview from the past with you today, so it's not a new conversation. But I want to tell you why I chose it. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I was telling you about that like really simple flank steak or skirt steak recipe that I make that my whole family loves and my son was raving about, and how just the simple things are the best. And then I remembered that there is a flank steak recipe that is possibly better than my simple best one. And so I remade it for me and Marty last week, and it is so good. And so I wanted to replay the conversation with you where I first heard about this miraculous flank steak recipe. And so the conversation I'm playing for you today is between me and Beth Lee from omgyummy.com. I've had Beth on several times. I know you know, and her recipes are always great. But this one, I've made this one like 4 times now, and it is just amazing. Beth is also the author of the wonderful cookbook, The Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. And yeah, you can find her at omgyummy.com. And you'll remember actually last time that I had her on the show, which is since this actual interview that I'm playing for you today, I've had her on since then. She won the award from the International Association of Culinary Professionals for her Instagram account. And it really is an amazing account to follow. So you're in for a treat today. An amazing recipe, an amazingly talented guest, and an amazingly talented Instagrammer. You can find Beth on Instagram at omgyummy, and you can hear our conversation now. Hi, Beth. Welcome back.
Hello, Christina. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, it's really, really nice to see you. Nice to talk with you again. Now, I would like to start, for anybody who didn't hear us talk before, can you tell me about the cookbook that you have out?
I would love to talk to you about my cookbook. My first cookbook was the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook, and it came out in August 2021. So, right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, I was writing a cookbook. And it's one of the best experiences. I'm so glad I did it. So it's, again, the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. So it's all about the recipes that you wish that you had from your grandmother and want to learn to bake, or the recipes you want to pass on to your kids, or you just want to learn because maybe you're living with a partner who is Jewish and you're not, or vice versa, and you want to teach somebody. But what's really wonderful about it, and it taught me so much, is that I was raised as an Ashkenazic Jew, so an Eastern European Jew on the East Coast of this country. And we have a certain set of like baked goods that maybe I was used to growing up with, but there are the large swath of other parts of the diaspora of Jews that make all kinds of other baked goods. And so the book includes baked goods from Sephardic background, which would be like North African, Spanish, Greek background, and also Mizrahi, so Middle Eastern or even into the Indian area. So I have pita bread in the book. I have malawach, which is this wonderful flatbread. I have bizcochos, which are Sephardic. I have barekas, which are Sephardic. And then I have, of course, challah bread, and there's babka, which is on the cover. So anyways, I love the book. It's still going really strong. It's now being distributed by Simon & Schuster and was bought by a company called Source Books, which is associated with Random House. So it's a wonderful book, even if you're not Jewish. Some of my neighbors, like one woman is of a Japanese American background, but it motivated her to start baking. And the first thing she baked were these Sephardic rolls called rastas. And she loved it. And it got her to pull out her stand mixer and start baking again. So I love seeing people make things from the book, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, and just get excited about getting in the kitchen and creating something wonderful and yummy to share with their family and friends.
Well, that is so exciting. Congratulations. That's really, really phenomenal. And I know it's doing really well. So congratulations for that. So it's the different kinds of Jewish baking from around the world. Is it divided into like the holidays that we'd be familiar with, or is it seasonal? How is it organized?
That's a great question. So it's actually organized more by type of baked good. And then within the context of each baked good, it will talk about, like, is this something you'd make at Hanukkah? Is this something you'd make at Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, which just passed? So there's a section on like bread. There's a section on like filled pastries. There's a section on cakes, and I think it's cakes and cookies. So it's organized more by type of baked good, but I think when you look in the index, you could find, Passover, for example. So on Passover, you would not be cooking with flour that rises. So for example, for Passover, there's this cake. Actually, I just demonstrated this cake at a live event, and I encourage people, it's because it's now on my blog too. Occasionally I will share something from the book, maybe with a little twist, but I call it a honey almond cake on the blog, but in the book, it's called Tish Pishti. It's a very traditional, but within that tradition, lots of variations of a cake that is more of a Sephardic background. And it always has some kind of nut in it, always has some kind of citrus, but it could have different kinds of flour. I went the direction of using almond flour in it so that it could be gluten-free. It happens to be dairy-free because I make it with olive oil, and it's okay for Passover because it doesn't. The rising agent, the leavening agent, is egg white. Oh. So there's no baking powder in it. There's no regular flour in it. So there's so many things about the cake that make it really flexible and wonderful for people of any kind of dietary, observations that they have, whether they're gluten-free, whether they're dairy-free, whether they keep kosher. And it's great for the holidays, like for Rosh Hashanah, because I use honey in the syrup. I suggest using honey in the syrup instead of sugar. It's great for Passover, and it's great for anyone. It's really just a fun, great cake. So anyhow, you can look in the index, you can find the recipes for the different types of holidays, but it's really more about the type of baked good, which I think makes it really wonderful for anyone who loves to bake. There's also a section up front, which is kind of a tutorial on like how to get your kitchen set up for baking, and talks about, like ways I try to organize my kitchen, the minimum types of equipment you have to have in your kitchen. And I try to keep it really simple. The ingredients in the book are really simple things you can go to your local grocery store and find, not something that you need to go to a lot of specialty stores or have super specialized kind of equipment in your kitchen. The whole idea of the book was to make it really accessible for people also at any level of baking. So a beginner to an advanced baker will find recipes to fit their level. And I've gotten great feedback from people. Even the recipes that don't have pictures are really very organized, and you can really follow through and get through the recipe, whether you are familiar or not, that the instructions really carry people through. I hope that people feel like I'm standing on their shoulder in the kitchen.
Yeah, your voice is in there, and you're being careful with the explanation so nobody's ever in doubt. I love recipes like that. So Beth, that came out in 2021, which is a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Do you
I can't believe,
any more books in the work? What have you been doing?
Well, I've been really busy working on my blog, omgyummy.com. So that's been, because while I was writing that book, I kind of let that step to the side. So I've been really busy working on my blog. I've also been doing a lot of live streaming on a platform called Kitsch, and or on Instagram, because I love connecting with people. One-on-one or in a group, in person, whatever. But I'm also loved writing the book. So I have been working on a new proposal with a friend of mine, who also happens to be kind of I'll call her my co-conspirator on my Middle Eastern cooking group that you can find on Facebook called Tasting Jerusalem. But we have a really interesting story. We separately fell in love with Middle Eastern ingredients, but we have been friends since sixth grade. So for a really long time. And our lives took really different paths. She lived in different places. We still live in different places. I'm in Northern California. She's in Southern California. But our paths came back together when the Jerusalem Cookbook came out back in late 2012. And we decided to start running this group. And we both had, as I said, separately fallen in love with Middle Eastern ingredients. And we took this perspective of learning about what everyone was loving in the Jerusalem Cookbook, but learning it through the idea of the ingredients, because a lot of people were intimidated by ingredients in the recipes they weren't familiar with. So we've expanded beyond that cookbook. We talk about different cuisines, different cookbooks, but we always take a perspective of the ingredients that we love. Preserved lemons, pomegranate molasses, baccarat, like what are they? Can you make them yourself? Where can you buy them? And so Serene and I have kind of realized that in a way Serene Wallace is my person. You can find her on Instagram at fringe.food. So we are working on a book that incorporates this idea of this love of Middle Eastern ingredients, but also our friendship and our backgrounds as being people who live in California and love the California food lifestyle of fresh food and how that works together with Middle Eastern ingredients. So I can't say more than that because we're still in the process of selling the book, but it's very, very exciting. And it's very exciting to do it with someone else. It's a really wonderful experience. And I think we have something very special to share with people. In the meantime, if you love learning about new ingredients, please come join us on Facebook in the group called Tasting Jerusalem. And we're in there all the time. And it's a group so anybody can post. So we get this great opportunity to hear from people throughout the world. Like I just posted something the other day about this weird citrus that I got from a friend, a neighbor who lives right down the road, and they don't even know what it is. They think it's something like a citron, which is like an original citrus from way back when, but crossed with something else. But it was really cool because I showed pictures of it and I asked the group, has anyone seen this? Do they know what it is? And of course I preserved it, like, because I have to do that. I had to see what would happen if I preserved it. But anyhow, this woman commented about this particular citrus they have in Africa. I think she was from Nigeria. I might be remembering wrong. I mean, that is just so cool. So cool to be able to share that and learn from people all over the world. So if you're as like geeky as I am about learning about ingredients and cuisines and what people are cooking and eating and wondering about in other parts of the world, come and join us at Tasting Jerusalem. But the book is kind of like the book that Serena and I suddenly realized we've been kind of writing for the last 10 years that we've been running this group. And we're very excited about it.
Congratulations, but also it just sounds beautiful. It sounds exciting and beautiful, fulfilling, and best of luck getting that published.
Thank you.
I'm sure you will have success given the group success and your previous book success. Publishers would be crazy not to pick it up. They're going to be fighting over it, right?
Well, thank you, Christine. It's nice to have that support. And we hope that is it, because we know that what we are cooking up in the book is going to be something that is really going to make just add some excitement to people in the kitchen without making them stressed, without, like just broadening their view and the flavors that they can find with these wonderful ingredients, but in a way that's super approachable. So we're excited. We hope we can get it out there to everybody and share our enthusiasm with them.
So great. So, okay, now it is time. I want to know, have you prepared a recipe or planned a recipe to tell me about?
I have.
Okay.
And I hope you love it as much as I do. So it is I call it on the blog. It's available on my blog. I call it a lemony seared flank steak with pomegranate molasses.
Oh my gosh.
It's really simple. It's deceptively simple. So you basically are going to be grilling or pan searing, could even broil, a flank steak. Now, it could be it could be something else. It could be a different cut of beef. It could be lamb chops. We can get into that. But you're really just preparing it and grilling or searing it. And then when it's all done, you're using one of my favorite ingredients in the entire world. You take your steak out, which could cook as quickly as 3 minutes aside, stick it on your cutting board, take some pomegranate molasses. Let me repeat that. Pomegranate molasses. For anyone who's listening who does not already have this in their pantry, or if you start following me at OMG Yummy pretty much everywhere, you'll see that I'm kind of a freak about pomegranate molasses because it is so delicious. It goes with so many things. It's so easy to make, or you can buy it. You pour some of that on as soon as you take it out of your grill pan or off the grill or under the broiler, stick it on your cutting board, put the pomegranate molasses on, and then loosely cover it with foil. And it basically just creates this gravy, this delicious gravy. And you wait like 10 minutes because you got to wait anyways, right? You got to let your meat rest so the juices stay in. So then you can imagine you slice this up. It's perfectly cooked. And now the juices from inside mixed with the juices of the pomegranate molasses. And you basically have this fabulously automatically sauced, let's say, cut of meat to serve. And you could make this just as easily in the middle of the week. I mean, seriously, if you get a piece you can obviously use whatever size flank you have, but flank is oftentimes available about 1 pound pieces, maybe 1.5. So it cooks up literally like in a hot cast iron pan, for example. You could be about 3-4 minutes aside to medium rare. Take it off, put the pomegranate molasses on, cover it up, finish making your sides. Could be a salad, could be a roasted vegetable, whatever you like. Maybe you've already made like a pot of rice, some roasted potatoes. And then 10 minutes later, this is ready. And it's so good. And then I can tell you, like, I served this on the weekend. For example, we were up with friends and we had, 8 people or something to serve for a dinner on a Saturday night. And we had we had lamb chops and a lot of lamb chops. I mean, because we were like 8 people and a couple of people were like young men who could eat, 4 or 5 of them, right? But you just treat the meat with like some olive oil, salt, pepper, and I like to put a little lemon juice on it. That's it. And then all of those went on the grill. And when they came off, we did the same thing. We put the pomegranate molasses on, and then 10 minutes later, we served them up. And there was not a lamb chop left. I mean, it was just absolutely delicious. But really, could it be easier? I
No.
mean, you always prep your meat with something, right? So in this case, it's just olive oil, salt, pepper, and some lemon juice. Grill it up, put the pomegranate molasses on. And then you can kind of play, like you could go with the whole theme of the pomegranate. So while we're talking right now, I have a pomegranate tree, and pomegranates are
Oh.
exactly ripe right now. So you could totally play with this, and you could serve, a salad on the side with fresh pomegranate arils on it. Arils are
Mm-hmm.
the pomegranate seeds. So you could really make a whole theme
Mm-hmm.
around the
Mm-hmm.
pomegranate and the pomegranate molasses. But pomegranate molasses you can have all year round. You don't have to have the fresh pomegranate. You can make your own pomegranate juice from the pomegranate seeds and then reduce it down and make your pomegranate molasses. Absolutely. But you can also go to the store and buy a jar of pomegranate juice, just unadulterated pomegranate juice. It's available. You don't have to go to a special store. You can find it in Safeway. They'll have a jar of pomegranate juice.
Mm-hmm.
You take 2 cups of it, or if you want to make a little more, 4 cups of it. I put it on a pot on the stove and slowly reduce it down till it gets to where it's coating the back of the spoon. And voila, you have pomegranate molasses. It's that simple. It's really,
Amazing.
really that simple. Now, but you can buy it. If you don't want to make pomegranate molasses, you can buy it. You probably have to find a specialized Middle Eastern store or order it online. It's totally available, but make it yourself.
I've never made it myself, and I'm kicking myself because I've bought it many times, but I've never even thought to make it myself. So that I'm going to add pomegranate juice to my grocery list as soon as we're done talking, and I will try that. I have questions for you. So yes. Some of them are about the pomegranate treatment, but some are other things. When you are grilling your flank steak, do you take it out of the fridge and have it at room temperature for a little while, or do you go straight to the grill or pan with it? I think everybody's different about this.
Yeah, I've started reading arguments to the contrary that you don't want your meat to come to room temperature. And I don't know, where do you stand on this? I generally do have it out because I will also like to just because it maybe does a little bit of tenderizing since I put the lemon juice on it ahead of time. So I usually have it, I'll take it out maybe half an hour before, put it on, a cutting board or a plate, put the lemon juice, olive oil, salt, pepper on, maybe let it sit for a bit. Like I say, I've been reading more and more that people are saying, don't do that. Don't let it come to room temperature. I would say that I'm probably halfway between fridge temperature, room temperature, and I'm really more taking it out. It's almost like a little marinating.
Right. That makes, and it's going to marinate faster if it's at room temperature than if it's in the fridge like that. So I'll where I am on this, and people get upset with me, but it is true. There are people in my house who like well done steak. And if you want well done steak, then I definitely do room temperature because it's going to cook faster and not risk kind of burning on the outside as badly when you're trying to get it up to that temperature. But if I'm trying to do like medium rare, I usually go fridge. I learned this from the Splendid Table listening to Lynn Rossetto Casper. So that's who I heard this from. She said, when you want a rarer steak, you want it to have contact with the pan for as long as possible, even though you're not cooking it for as long, so that you can get that crust. And so if it's cold, it's going to take longer to get to the temperature you want, so you get more time. I haven't tested
crispy on the outside.
Right. I haven't tested the side by side, but it makes so much sense.
It does. And my husband is kind of the steak maker in the house. Not so much this particular recipe, although he would, but he loves just like your regular old, like good, like a rib steak or whatever. And he plays around, like he'll salt it and leave it open in the fridge for like 2 days. Yeah. And then we're always trying to get that best crust on it. Mm-hmm. And we personally like medium rare steak. Mm-hmm. So it does make logical sense to me that if it's colder, that it's not going to cook in the inside as fast and you're going to get that really good crust on the outside. There is a video in the blog post for this that shows me putting the flank steak in a super hot cast iron pan, and you can see the smoke coming up. I love watching that little clip. Mm-hmm. Some professional video people helped me with that. But so really that really hot pan too really helps, like putting it in a super hot pan. And that's why, like, the instructions on this recipe for a 1 pound flank steak, and flank steaks, if you're not familiar with them, or for anyone listening, they're usually fairly thin. And you have to be so careful about cutting it across the grain. Mm-hmm. It'll be super tender and delicious if you do, not if you don't. Mm-hmm. but it literally did only take me like 3 minutes aside. And then, reminding people, which I've heard you do as well on your podcast, that you don't want to take it off already at the temperature you want, because while it sits in rest, it's going to go higher. And we have this thermometer we use now to track the temperature, and we watch it. It's really true. Like, it's hard for people to believe, but it's really, really true that it goes up in temperature after you take it out.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to pick about 5 to 10 degrees less temperature than where you want to end up. And I have cooked this appropriately to medium rare with 3 minutes aside in a really hot pan.
I love that. I will say the thermometer thing, like I have this probe thermometer with like a digital reader on it. And I have some TikTok videos where I'm using that to do different steaks or things. And I get these, people are trolling on TikTok. They are, but they're like, who needs a thermometer to know when their steak is done? What kind of expert are you? Like this kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, no. Like, this is perfect. Like, this is coming out. Like, if I do it on the stove and then transfer it to the oven or whatever I'm doing, it is exactly the right temperature, and it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference.
Oh, totally. It really does. And I've gone through this. I kind of, one of the big busy times of the year on my blog is Thanksgiving. It just kind of ended up that kind of became a Thanksgiving expert, partially because we've been cooking it every year for like 30 years for the family. So I get a lot of traffic. I have a lot of posts about Thanksgiving, but the big deal was, how do you make a turkey that comes out cooked properly all the way around? And, it's not just the thermometer. But it absolutely is the thermometer. You have to get to know your oven. You have to know what temperature yields you the right temperature when it's done resting, because the way it works in our kitchen, that turkey comes out, then we have to finish all the stuff. We make gravy right then and there, fresh. We love the gravy, and then you got to put all your sides in, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, point being, that's really, like, that's the key. Like, you have to know what temperature to take it out at. So many people I've talked to over the years will say, well, it's supposed to be, 165 on the breast meat, right? So people take it out at 165, and then they leave it on their counters for like a half an hour to an hour while it's resting and they're doing other stuff. And then they wonder why their breast meat is dry. Well, because to take it out before it gets to 165.
And with the turkey, I mean, so my parents catered tons of turkey dinners, and we were there for so much of it. With turkey, it stays hot for so long. It's so big, right? It's big and it holds that heat in. The temperature can rise by an insane amount after, like for a steak, you're going to get maybe, 5 degrees or something up, from resting, but you rest that turkey for half an hour, and it can go up 10 degrees. Like, it really can. And then, you take it at 165. Now you're eating a 175 degree turkey.
Yes, totally. And I mean, we have done, like, I have all my notes on. I'm kind of a cook by the seat of my pants kind of person day to day. Like, what's in the fridge? What do I need to use up? What do I have enough energy to do? I don't really have like a full week planned out. I don't cook like that anymore. But when it comes to holidays and I have 10, 20 people coming over, I have lists, and, I have like calendar. So by the way, if you're like that, you can come to my blog. I have like a 2-week Thanksgiving calendar you can download. And then I dry brine, which is another key to it, not to get onto the turkey thing. But anyways, point being, I'm super organized about it, and I keep notes every year. And I have, like, I can look back through the calendars. What temperature did we take it out this year? Was it 155? Was it 151? What temperature did we cook it at? How long did we cook it at the high heat? Like, I've been doing this year after year after year after year until we could finally say, like I always say, you have to get to know your own oven. But in my oven, this is when I take it out. This is where it ends up at the end. And it works. I mean, it absolutely works.
Yeah.
People
really
love
does.
Our turkey between getting the temperature right, and we dry brine, which bringing me back to the flank steak, and ask me more questions, but this is not something you need to plan for, but a thermometer is not a bad thing. Checking the temperature is great, but this is so easy, and you will just love the resulting flavor is just delicious.
So I only have one question left, I think. I want to know, how much pomegranate molasses are you putting on there? And importantly, I mean, the flavor part of it, you said it kind of turns into almost a sauce. But also, I'm curious about whether it's dissolving that crust at all, or it doesn't matter because it's so good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I go and put a ton on versus a little bit, and then how much do you need to make that sauce? And are you doing a bit of a trade-off, or is the crust still delicious?
Does it probably a little tiny bit dissolve the crust? I can't say that it doesn't. Mm-hmm. But I honestly, I've never had anyone not love this, and I don't use that much pomegranate molasses. So the recipe that's on my blog calls for 1 to 2 tablespoons, a little loosey-goosey. Okay. Like, you could almost not measure. Just take your bottle, if it's in a bottle, drizzle a little bit, or you can measure. I give you a measurement because some people want that. And also, like, I call for a 1 pound flank steak, but what if it's 1.5 pounds? Or you are like, you want more sauce. So it's one of those recipes that, like, it's not going to be bad or good because you went with 2 tablespoons instead of 1. Could it dissolve the crust a little bit? I've never even thought about that before. Maybe, but the trade-off of the flavor, so good. And one little tip, if you happen to have a cutting board that has like a little ridge around it so you don't lose the juice, I recommend that.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. You put it on that cutting board, you drizzle it with the pomegranate molasses, you tent it with some foil that's what you said, right, to stay warm for a bit. Then you're going to go and slice it against the grain. The juices are coming out. You transfer the meat to your serving platter. Do you then tip the cutting board with the juices over the meat? Is that the...
I would. Yeah. I mean, that's what I would do. And I'm crossing over recipes here, but I have this other recipe on my blog. It's super old and the pictures are super ugly, but it's this Italian steak salad. I think they call it like tagliata or something like that traditionally, and excuse my pronunciation. I don't have good Italian language proficiency. But anyway, the point of it is you take this steak and you lay it on top of arugula or some kind of green. And it kind of becomes a steak salad, and you shave some Parmesan on, and you can get fancier with it, but that's the net of it. And just as I'm thinking about this, talking to you and you asking me these questions, you could totally cross over those 2 recipes, and you could have this platter ready, and you could have a bed of greens on it. You could go with like spicy arugula or more like spinach, or a mixture of, or, depending on how great your farmer's market is, they have all these great some of these farmers have these amazing greens, but make this bed of greens, and you could lay the steak on top, and you could pour the juice on, and you basically could be making almost like just your whole presentation, and it could almost be like the dressing for the greens. I'm just making this up as I talk to you, but that's kind of the way it is. Or, in our family, we're a very multicultural family, very mixture of backgrounds. My husband is American, but he's Korean American. His family is from Hawaii. So we eat a lot of rice in our house. So again, like imagine this sauce going on the rice or on some potatoes or whatever other vegetable. It just kind of the yumminess, you can really extend that flavor.
Salty, meaty, sweet, syrupy. It sounds amazing, Beth. I cannot wait to try this. Can you remind everybody where they can find you if they have questions, they want to see what you're doing, if they want to stay tuned to hear the cookbook announcement that we know is probably coming soon? Where should they be?
They can find me on my blog, omgyummy.com. I refer to it as Oh My God Yummy, but omgyummy.com. I'm on Instagram at omgyummy. I'm on Facebook at OMG Yummy, but also the Tasting Jerusalem group. And if people like to watch videos, there's a platform that people are just getting to know called Kitch, Kittch. And I do have a channel on there with, 20, 30 or more videos of various things if they want to watch me cooking things in my kitchen. And then I'm just starting to dabble in TikTok, and I'm OMG Yummy 20 there, but dabbling. So if you really want the rich experience, come and find me on my blog, on Instagram, OMG Yummy, or on Facebook, OMG Yummy.
And the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook they can find.
Yes. they can find that. They can go to the cookbook page on my blog and then click through, and it'll take you through to Amazon to buy it. Or you can just go straight to Amazon. And I do want to mention quickly, it's a great book to give as a gift for any Jewish holiday. And it's available, which is a different kind of thing, but my publisher wanted to make it available. Originally, it was paperback, but it's also available in hardcover. And it's really lovely as a hardcover. It stays open beautifully on the counter. And as a gift, it's a really wonderful thing. So keep that in mind. You can look for it and you can buy it in paperback or hardcover.
Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing this recipe with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me again. I love talking with you, and I hope I get a chance to come back and share some more recipes with you.
Oh, yeah. When the cookbook comes out, the next one, we'll talk again for sure.
Yes.
Thanks, Beth.
Thanks, Christine.
Okay, go get yourself a flank steak, get yourself a bottle of pomegranate juice, and get ready to be amazed. It is that good. And Beth Lee is so amazing, right? Don't forget, check her out, her website, omgyummy.com, and also omgyummy on Instagram, and I can't wait for you to try that recipe. So as I said, I am heading out of town for a while, and so I am not testing any recipes in my kitchen for the next little while. But don't worry, there are still things going live on the site every week, and I can tell you this week I have one amazingly delicious recipe and one technique that you might find helpful. So the recipe going live on Cook the Story this week is for the salmon rice bowl. Oh, I'm obsessed with this. It uses basically the same recipe for the salmon as those salmon bites that I've told you about. That's the one where I discovered that they're actually better if you don't marinate them before cooking them. They're better just tossed with the sauce and cooked immediately. Those salmon bites, or you could really do any salmon, leftover salmon, smoked salmon, canned salmon, and then it's kind of got this like Asian set of toppings. There's edamame and cucumber, sesame seed, green onion, and the dressing. I love the dressing. It's just brilliant. Well, you're going to have to go and check that out. And then on the Cookful, the technique that I am sharing this week is for how to cut cabbage. And this was because I was doing a whole bunch of cabbage stuff one day. I was making cabbage rolls, the Ukrainian cabbage rolls, and so I had to core the cabbage and then blanch it. And so I wanted to show people how to core cabbage if you're going to be blanching, like pre-cooking the leaves so that they're soft enough to roll to make into cabbage rolls. And then I was also doing a coleslaw recipe, which involves cutting it in half, coring it, and then slicing it thinly. And then I was also doing chunks of cabbage for there was a stir fry that I don't think is going to make its way onto the site. It wasn't as good as I was hoping, but there is a ground beef and cabbage recipe that has like chunkier bits of cabbage in it. So it was just kind of these three different ways of preparing a base head of cabbage. And so for people who are new to working with cabbage, this is a great tutorial for how to do that. So that is going live on the Cookful this week. As to what I am talking about on the show this week, we have the tutorial for how to cut your own lamb chops. Oh, there's a really nice onion gravy recipe. I am talking about the cutting cabbage. You know, this is in preparation for St. Patrick's Day coming up, right? Because we're going to make the corned beef and cabbage. Everybody's doing it. I mean, I won't be because I'm going to be in Ecuador, but you might be. And so you're going to know how to cut the cabbage. There's a shepherd's pie recipe also because St. Patrick's Day is coming up. And that cottage cheese queso. I am finally telling you about that one. So lots to look forward to this week on the podcast. Even though I'm not here, you won't know the difference because I will still be with you every single day. If you're not already subscribed to this show, what are you waiting for? Go do it right now. Go on your phone to your favorite podcast app, search for Recipe of the Day and click subscribe, follow, give it 5 stars, give me a comment, review. All those things help more people find me. And I appreciate it very much. You can also find everything that I've talked about today, links and everything at cookthestory.com/ROTD. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is March 8th of 2025. I want to say a big thank you to Beth Lee from OMG Yummy, and thank you to you for listening and for those ratings and comments. I appreciate it so much. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookbook.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.